Hello, this is immigration attorney Christian Zeller. It's Tuesday, July 7th. I'm broadcasting from my home office, and this is a student visa alert and update. During the past few months, as a result of the COVID-19 health crisis, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, through its SEVP, the Student and Exchange Visitor Program, instituted temporary exemptions to allow students who were otherwise in valid F1 and M1 student status to attend classes online, either full-time or part-time, and still maintain their valid student status. Now, with the upcoming 2020 fall semester, this is going to change. There will still be some exceptions to provide flexibility to both students and institutions, but not as liberal as what we have seen. And in addition to that, the Department of Homeland Security is planning to publish these new procedures and responsibilities as a temporary final rule in the Federal Register. Now, personally, I don't think that this is going to have any weight because, once again, the Department of Homeland Security did not seem to go through the proper rulemaking process, and you can't make a rule unless you go through that. Anyway, so let's talk about these new guidelines. Let's first talk about how it is going to affect students, and then how it is going to affect the institutions where those students will attend school. Number one, students attending schools operating entirely online may not take a full online course load and remain in the United States. The U.S. Department of State will not issue visas to students enrolled in schools and/or programs that are fully online for the fall semester, nor will U.S. Customs and Border Protection permit these students to enter the United States. Active students currently in the United States enrolled in such programs must depart the United States or take other measures, such as transferring to a school with in-person instructions to remain in lawful status or potentially face immigration consequences, including but not limited to the initiation of removal proceedings. So those are pretty harsh measures, aren't they? Number two, students attending schools operating under normal in-person classes are bound by existing federal regulations. So eligible F1 students may take a maximum of one class or 3 credit hours online. And the third possibility, students attending school adopting a hybrid model, that is a mixture of online and in-person classes, will be allowed to take more than one class or 3 credit hours online. However, these schools must certify to SEVP through their Form I-20s, Certificate of Eligibility for Non-Immigrant Student Status, that the program is not entirely online, that the student is not taking an entirely online course load for the 2020 fall semester, and that the student is taking the minimum number of online classes required to make normal progress with their degree program. So these exemptions do not apply to F1 students in English language training programs or M1 students who are not permitted to enroll in any online courses, of course. So that's how the students will be affected. So if you want to summarize, if you're a student in F1 or M1 status, and if you are in an institution for the fall where there are online classes only, you cannot do that. You've got to change to another school or you got to leave the country. If you are in an institution which has the traditional tuition program as we've all known it, where you just have in-person classes, then you may take one online class per semester. And of course, if you attend, that's the third option, if you attend an institution that has switched to a hybrid program, where there's a mixture of in-person classes and online classes, then you can do that, but you must take sufficient credits in order to maintain a full course load. So now let's talk about the I-20 requirements and how a school would actually maintain a student status. So for all students attending schools in the United States this fall 2020, the DSOs, our designated school officials, must issue new forms I-20 to each student, certifying that the school is not operating entirely online, that the student is not taking an entirely online course load for the fall 2020 semester, and that the student is taking the minimum number of online classes required to make normal progress in their degree program. And the DSOs must indicate this information on the I-20 in the remarks field for SEVP. Now, the schools must also update and reissue all forms I-20 to reflect these changes in program enrollment and student information within 21 business days of publication of this message. And this message was basically published by SEVP yesterday on June 6, 2020. And it must be done on or before August 4th, 2020. So when issuing new forms I-20, then the schools, of course, have to prioritize students who require new visas and who are outside the country, so those students can also, benefit from the new rule. Now, for the fall semester 2020, continuing F&M students who are already in the United States may remain in active SEVP status if they make normal progress in a program of study or are engaged in approved practical training, either as part of a program of study or following completion of a program of study. If a school changes its operational stance mid-semester, and as a result, a non-immigrant student switches to only online classes, or a non-immigrant student changes their course selection, and as a result ends up taking an entirely online course load, the schools are reminded that non-immigrant students within the United States are not permitted to take a full course of study through online classes. If a non-immigrant student finds themselves in this situation, they must leave the United States or take alternative steps to maintain their non-immigrant status, such as transfer to a school with in-person instructions. Also for the fall semester 2020, continuing F&M students outside the United States whose schools of enrollment are only offering online classes may remain in active status in SEVIS if they are taking online courses and are able to meet the normal full course of study requirement or the requirements for a reduced course of study. Only students enrolled at a school that is only offering online coursework can engage in remote learning from their home country. And in this case, the DSOs should annotate the student's record to make it clear that the student is outside the US, but taking full-time online courses, as that is the only choice offered by the school. So here's what the schools need to do in order to satisfy these procedural requirements. Number one, the schools that offer entirely online classes or programs or will not reopen for the fall 2020 semester must complete an operational change plan and submit it to SEVP@ice.dhs.gov. Let me repeat. You submit your plan to SEVP@ice.dhs.gov. And that has to happen no later than Wednesday, July 15th, 2020. You also have to be careful about the subject line. Here's what you got to put in. Fall 2020, fully online, will not reopen. The subject line goes, fall 2020, fully online, will not reopen. And then, of course, you put your school's name and your school SEVP code. Second, certified schools that will not be entirely online, but will reopen in the fall and that will use any of the following educational formats must update their operational plans by August 1st, 2020 and include as whether they will solely have in-person classes or two, delayed or shortened sessions or a hybrid of in-person and remote classes. And if you're one of those institutions, these plans shall also be submitted to SEVP@ice.dhs.gov, and in that subject line, you put fall 2020 in-person hybrid/modified sessions. So in the subject line goes fall 2020 in-person/hybrid/modified sessions. And then third, schools should update their operational plans of circumstances regarding the operational posture change within 10 calendar days. So quite some changes and very short lead time on all of that. And So there you have it. That's what it is. If you, of course, need additional guidance on that, as always, feel free to reach out to us directly so we can point you in the right direction. And if you have not done so already, make sure to subscribe to my immigration help channel here online. Goodbye. Talk to you soon.